Just sort of feel your body as a little island of its own, and you're not connected to anyone else's energy or story or even your own story, but you're open to receiving the love that is here for you, the teachings that are here for you, the guidance that's here for you, and the beauty of each moment as that unfolds. And you trust that it's always perfect, even when you don't know. And you know that you don't know. You can still trust the one love of God. You can still trust that Spirit is around you. Spirit is got your back, always in all things. So as you prepare your body and your mind and your spirit for the love and the wisdom of KRYON, you might want to feel into that place of gratitude for what always has been in your life and the what is still to come.
Greetings, dear ones. I'm KRYON of Magnetic Service. And how many times have we said that? I know. And if I told my partner, then he would start keeping track. And that's because human beings do that. And before I start this short channeling about a subject which is complex, one that has been brought up this day and needs to be discussed, I want to take a moment to say this. This may not be your reality. And even as the human being sits with wisdom, acceptance, tolerance, patience, the idea that a man can sit in a chair and deliver words in your language succinctly that are supposed to be from the other side of the veil is a stretch. And we know it. When we speak to the individuals in the room through intuition, it's often not seen, heard, acknowledged, sometimes discounted, and we know it. And that's why they call it a veil. There is a separation between the consciousness of a 3 or 4 single-digit human being and a multidimensional creative source, and we know it. And so much of the puzzlement that goes on with the old soul trying to connect with a higher power is the puzzlement of not truly understanding what's on the other side of the veil. It would be like you driving across a bridge having no idea what will be on the other side, whether there'll be roads on the other side, whether or not that physics works the same way for your car on the other side. So how is it that you're expected to have a linear communication with an energy that is benevolent and loving and compassionate, but you really don't know much about? Now I'm speaking to you in your language. And I'm doing it in a linear way that is one word after another. And that is not how I'm speaking to my partner. And it took him years to take a language that is not linear and put it into linearity. And I would like to tell you what was involved, because both of us changed. And that is the secret. God is not a static God, one that is uninterested in energy in the sky that just lays there and hopes you get it right. It is a benevolent, loving entity, if you wish to call it an entity that knows you personally because you're part of it. You are a piece of the energy of the Creator. Therefore, as you reach your hand out, we reach ours out too. And so that expression of free will has to do with intent. And as you reach to us and you say, I wish and I intend to communicate in a way that is succinct, understandable, accurate, and pure, you've got help. For we then start to change the way we see you because of the way you see us. You open a window for both. And so through the years, my partner, through the window that he has opened, has changed the way we communicate with him. And we have become more linear. And he has become more multidimensional. And in that process, you get purity, understanding, and a succinct message. And if you study the channeling of KRYON, you will see the structure in the message. It's compartmentalized. It's logical. There's a start, a middle, a finish. And none of these things will you see in a multidimensional energy, a soup where there is no time. And so something had to happen in our communications that would allow this meld. And what about your intuition? It is the same. As you start to practice that which you call intuitive thought, if you wish to hold on to it longer and see what it says, the sender of the intuitive thought will also change. You are giving intent to straighten out, interpret, and translate the message as you give intent to hear it. Human beings are compartmentalized to the max, and this is part of being a three-dimensional human. You actually are in 4D, but you call it 3. And past that, there is a multidimensional soup, not even countable. It doesn't go 5 on. It goes 1, 2, 3, 4, all. And it makes it so difficult to cross that bridge. And so what I'm going to tell you next is going to trigger confusion. And it's exactly what I want to do. Because I wish you to think out of the box. In order to do this, I will present a scenario that involves what you would call the human soul. Now, I just gave you an expression that is incorrect. It's only incorrect because human language betrays the bias of singularity in the phrase. The meaning a. Human belonging to one. Soul, not souls, singular. So you have one, human soul. It belongs to you, you belong to it. End of story. And that is how you portray it, and that is the way you think of it. So let us take that concept apart in a way that you will understand. And again, we start in that marvelous field, long time ago, when the prophet Elijah, with free will, decided to ascend. One of the only human beings, through free choice, who decided to ascend on his own schedule outside of the transition of death, and in his case had somebody watching and taking notes. And when he did it, the first thing that the note taker, whose name was Elisha, saw was that he turned into a ball of light. And so we have the concept right now of something happening and the question of what it was. For whatever the energy of the human soul was did not go into the sky and turn into light. Nothing came down to get him and turn into light. He turned into light while he stood in the field. And this was the combination of the pieces and the parts of the soul on earth and the soul on the other side of the veil. And that combination cannot be sustained in a corporeal form. Now, I want my partner to back up and give you that again. When you decide to come into this planet, dear human being, you already have a soul on my side. And it's not a soul. It's part of the soup of God. It's a collective, a confluence of energy that can never be separate. A piece of us is imbued in you. A piece. It's not possible for you to come into this planet with your entire self that is spiritual. You cannot bring your whole soul in because you would vaporize like Elijah did. Part of you has to stay on my side of the veil. And so the working puzzle here, and that you see, is you already have a soul split. And that soul split is the communication strand, some calling it the silver cord, that keeps you grounded on the planet but allows an open portal through the pineal to that which is the peace of God you are. You call it the higher vibrating self, higher self. And so your quest for the higher self is really the quest to talk to that part of you on the other side of the veil which you call God. Are we confused yet? This is the easy part. So I hope you see this part, because the rest of it gets really confusing. And here you are on the planet, a piece of you. Because you are sacred part of the creative source, the other part of you remains on my side. What you call the other side of the veil. And now you're walking the earth with a puzzle. How do I connect? How do I connect? The old soul is the first one to ask that, because lifetime after lifetime they have felt the connection and they wish to reconnect it again. And this is part of what brings you to the chair, or to listen to this channeling, or to know more about your soul. So let us say this is the starting part of this story. Now it gets complicated. We have told you that upon your death, a piece and the part of that which is your soul energy stays on the planet in several ways. We'll talk about the living way so it doesn't get even more confusing. You stay with your loved ones as part of their guide set. And we have told you this before. How many of you sitting in the chairs listening right now can feel those you've loved and lost around you. And I will tell you, you've got to be dense as a brick not to. Because the old soul knows I'm right. If you've lost parents, they're with you. If you've lost children, they're with you. This is part of the most grand system you can imagine. And in the new teaching, in this newer energy, it is going to start to get more complex because you're able to understand it. Swallow hard and say, although I am singular, I get it. You don't have to know the physics of it. But if you could be multidimensional and you would understand what the physicists call quantum, you'd know you can be in several places at the same time. Multidimensional energies that you can see on the planet, you can prove can do that. So it's not such a stretch that the soul can too. And you cannot ask the questions, where am I? You can't. Because you're everywhere. Your focus at the moment is in your human body. But part of your soul is on the other side of the veil. Now it gets complicated. When you pass on, the corporeal part that was in your soul, part of it goes to collective and you become complete, except that you leave some behind and you leave it with your loved ones who remain. Now they have part of your soul as their guide group and they're walking around on the earth. So let's take a summary. You have come and you've gone, you've departed, and now you are on the other side of the veil as a part of God, except pieces of you are with your loved ones, depending upon how many you have and how many children, and even those you've fallen in love with that are still here and you're not. They don't even have to be biological family, they're karmic family. You may be a piece and a part of as many as 25 or 30 people on the planet, and they're walking around. Now, how many are you at this point? And you can't answer that any more than you can say, how many are in the soup that we have discussed? Now, get ready for the hard part. You decide to reincarnate. And you do. And in comes the precious baby. And the cave of creation knows you're coming. And all that you were in all of your past lives is put into the DNA so that you would have the record inside of you as you progress and mature in your life and awaken, using that soup of energy and all the wisdom of the past lives to create this life, this new life as a child. And so here you are, reincarnated on the planet, and at the same time you're on the other side, and at the same time you're with 25 other people. So where is the soul now? Now I want you to amplify that by as many times as you've lived. And also to know that a part of your soul remains on the planet every single time you come and you go. That part of the energy of what you do is in the crystalline grid. And there's even more. Things we haven't discussed yet are part of this plan. You belong to Gaia. Because the Gaia energy is the collection point of the human soul parts, if you might say that. In a way, you never leave. In a way, you're always on the other side. In a way, you're always with loved ones. How do you like it so far? It's not about the complexity, it's about the beauty of the system. And it is a system. It's just not linear. And in our view, the hardest thing to tell you is this: because we have no time like you do, and because we have no linearity like you do, we see the culmination of all of your past lives and all of your karmic family happening all the time, and we see your imprint as enormous. I hope you get this. As you sit in the chair, we see the enormity of your soul influence on earth. And that is why we wash your feet. And that is why we congratulate you for what you've done. We don't see it a lifetime at a time like you do. We don't even see the complexity we've just given you. We just see your imprint and your stamp of this beautiful soul on so much of the planet, and so many humans who have also gone on to be old souls and shared it with their loved ones and karmic family. In a way, you might say the creative soul of you is everywhere. And I wanted to give that to you in these short moments so you'd have a better idea, not just of who you are, but as how we see you. Is it any wonder that our hand is always outstretched, waiting for pure intent? Waiting for free will, if you want to say, I want a bigger window. And in the bigger window, I'll have more information. And in the bigger window, I have more opportunities and more power, literally, to create that which I wish to create. And the old soul, with the maturity and the patience that is being developed, will always wish to create that which is benevolent for the planet, and it starts with peace on earth. That is only the first goal, dear one. You see it as the ultimate. Once you've got peace on earth, all is well. Oh, really? Once you have peace on earth, let me tell you, you can start the process of an ascended planet. Not until then. When you stop killing each other, we can begin. Now, we've never said that before either. There is so much ahead of you. And the old souls in the room are not done with your work. Do not interpret this as, oh my goodness, I'm going to be tired. Because you don't have the mind of God while you sit here in a corporeal body. When I see you on the other side of the veil, yet again, we'll celebrate and congratulate you as you return quickly in order to continue what you won't miss, the party you won't miss. This is what we see. It's the reason we're here. These are complex times with complex ideas that you are ready to hear. Go from this place different than you came, not confused, but rejoicing in the system that is benevolent and loving, created for you. And so it is.
These days to a close, bring your energy now more centered into your being, into your body, and just close your eyes for a couple of moments. Take some breaths. And be aware of the blessings that Spirit gives you just by your being here. The blessings in your life that facilitate your arrival at the door. You're taking your seat in the chair. And how wonderful that is that we live in this time and place and space where we are allowed, we are encouraged, and we are excited to be together. And that Spirit and the entourage around us surrounds us with arms of love. And just let yourself feel that. And know that when you leave, you take that with you. Those arms of love. That beautiful energy in your heart, in your whole beings, that has been reawakened, recalibrated, reinitiated into the divine you, the deeper remembering of the places where that lives, and bringing it to the now, bringing it into your life so that you walk forward into this new year with that unfolding in front of you. The light of God shining your way on your path. The arms of the divine around you. And your own knowing of the truth and the power of who you are. Of who you are as loved.
Greetings, dear ones. I am KRYON of Magnetic Service. I speak again, yet you're my partner. At the end of a day of intensive information, gathered before me are those who have been through the processes, the learning. And in those processes and in those learning times have been ideas and concepts presented which are new. Often they're new because they fly in the face of what has been. They tend to rewrite what you learn. That in itself should tell you that we are dealing with new energy. And I say we because I am here. Again, the difference between you and I in some ways is great and some ways is not. For the seed that is in me that you would call God is in you. I have never been a human, always standing on the outside as an advisor, which is what I wish to do. There is benevolence in all things, if you look for it. But I'll say this again. You're the worker. Today's information has been about how to find that which is the bridge to the eternal soul. And in the human body, we have told you that the bridge exists in many ways, but the one that is the greatest is that elusive one called innate. And we've given you some of the ways that are just beginning to get to it. And they're the practical ones. You might even call it its spiritual survival. It's the beginning. It has to do with health, well-being, youthing. All of these things are the beginning of a human race which is going to change. Very slowly, but it will change. There is adoration, elation, celebration on my side of the veil. And it's there because of what we see, we have seen before. There is a pattern here. Not to become too strange or esoteric, but dear ones, you are eternal. And you don't even know how eternal you are. You're ageless. You existed before you existed. You're in a circle that is never broken. You were here before the universe. You were here before the first universe, before this universe. That is how old. And yet in a circle there is no linearity. That is how old. At some level, listen, at some level, what is inside you at the cellular level, which you call Akashic remembrance, goes beyond this planet. At some level. Some of you are starting to awaken to Akashic wisdom. You're not afraid of death. Some of you realize that death is an opportunity for youth, and you like it. That's wisdom. Some of you are beginning to remember what is happening on the planet. That is wisdom. You're not afraid of it. You're realizing you've experienced it before. Here we go again. Praise Spirit for this. That is the wisdom we have. There have been those who have noticed this is an 11-day. It is the 11th of the month. 1/11/2015 added together is an 11. And when you see that, you cannot help but say, look, 11/11. And that should mean something to you, a wink from Spirit that said, all is well. It really is. Better than you think, no matter what news you get. Blessed is the light worker who plows forward in a difficult time with joy, expectation, intent, and peace. You don't let the things around you, which are real, then temper the spiritual reality that is grander and greater than that which is on the news. 11 in any numerology means enlightenment. It is the light, the first master number that exists. The master numbers and their definitions, if you have not noticed, respond to the evolution of humanity. And what are you told is the first thing that happened? Let there be light, illumination. What is the second thing? The creation story, that which is duality. That's the 22. The third, 33, that of the compassion. It begins moving toward 44, which has not yet been defined. Illumination, dear ones. It's a day to celebrate the light. We told you yesterday something we will then now complete. We told you that Spirit does not measure time like you do. It is not calendar-based, it is not clock-based, it is energy-based. And it is often then guided by the cosmos. The energy around you, the consciousness around you, the stars, the solar system, the things that influence you, your DNA, your consciousness, all is part of our clock. Now, what is going to happen in the future? Based upon our clock. You may have noticed that 2013 seemed to slop into 2014 in the recalibration department. At the end of 2013, all did not then get well. It continued for some, it healed for others, and others didn't feel it at all till the middle of last year. When, time-wise, is the recalibration going to end? It's a good question, and so we're going to give you this answer. There is no end to the word recalibration, since all of you are unique. I want you to understand this. Let us say a younger soul in a few years starts to learn what you know, and the energy becomes aware to them. They're going to go through recalibration in 2018. So how does that stand when you recalibrate and you say, when are we finished? So what we have to say is a generality for the oldest of souls. There is a release of the recalibrating energy for the oldest of souls coming shortly, very shortly. We are going to give it to you and tell you that it is based upon our clock, on the energies of the potentials we see and that of the stars. It is in mid-April. Now, if you go looking for this in astrological terms, you may find something or nothing. If you look for it in quantum astrological terms, you'll see it. And I've said that for someone who is here, who knows what I'm talking about. It's good news. It also gives you a hint on how we measure that which is time. There's a number of these steps that occur. And it's almost like they are invitations to open and close certain kinds of energy dispensations, some short, some long. And some of them have nothing to do with the clock. They have to do with where the earth is in its trip around the sun, which then asks the question, what are the energies involved with the sun, and how does the sun then do its part in this system of energy? It's beautiful. It's benevolent, if you want it to be. I think the greatest thing, however, that we have introduced to you in these last years is something that is troubling for many, releasing for others, pensive for many. I'm going to describe it very briefly and then we close. We have said over and over that human consciousness is based upon what you understand and you realize from birth. That there is no judgment of this. In fact, it makes total and complete sense that you are a three-dimensional society. Now, if you want to look at semantics, and you want to look at the great scientists who brought you relativity, you may have four dimensions. So we use the word 3D as a word that means you're linear. You are. This is all you've had. And all of your lives you put one foot in front of the other. You go to the next square on the calendar. Your verbiage, your thinking, even that which is spiritual, has to be based in something that is comfortable for you, that you understand. The most esoteric thinking is still linear. The most intellectual of you that would be proud of how far out you can be is linear. You discuss different dimensions and you give them names and numbers. That's funny. You don't even know what you're talking about. Let's all number the degrees of love. Write them down and pencil them in and draw the lines. That's funny. You're still linear. And now it stops. One of the greatest things that is changing with the human mind is the release of linearity. The understanding that you can go beyond singularity, beyond that which is counting, beyond that which says, in order to get from A to B, you have to put one step. in front of the other. There are those who are saying, I think A and B are the same. I can be in both at once. And then there will be those who will say, what are you talking about? And the answer is, I have just stepped out of linearity. And I will tell you that anyone who is thinking those things has indeed stepped out of linearity. There's an irony. The quantum physicists have known it all along. That there is a reality that you don't have. That they look at when they look into their places of smallness and take a look at matter itself and how it behaves and what it does. They see it. A reality that is not linear, that behaves in ways that are odd and unusual to you. There'll come a time when you take a look at the different realities that you have, and you'll look at the one that you have now as being ancient, old, and quaint. No one thinks that way anymore. The main one for an esoteric, spiritual person is the one that I will bring up now. How do you find truth? How do you define it? The word truth. Tell me about the concept, and I will give you a linearity 101. Because humanity looks for truth, and to them it means there is one thing called truth. Everyone is seeking the one thing called truth. You may have noticed something. 25 years, we never gave you the rules of a doctrine, did we? Never. 25 years, we never told you, think this way, think that way. We told you that free choice was king, didn't we? Now, as we become more elegant, and the transformation into non-linearity is becoming more real, you get to know a grander truth. This will not sit well with many. There is no such thing as a singular truth. How can there be one truth for 7 billion unique souls? How is it possible? And yet you look for it. Spiritual common sense will laugh at you for doing this. You will look back and laugh at yourselves. And yet you are designed in this way to look for one thing to grasp on that everyone else can grasp on, and that one thing will then be your salvation of peace and joy and energy and health and youthing. It doesn't exist. What if I told you that the truth is in 7 billion parts? That each of you have a piece of it. Take an old soul who has been here 1,000 or more lifetimes, who has had shamanic energy, who has studied the stars, who is wise beyond their years on the planet. Whether you remember it or not, this is not important. I'm talking about what's in you, in your DNA. You carry around the wisdom of the ancients, of the ancient. Part of you still remembering perhaps other worlds. Now hold that thought, and that's you. Now here comes a person that has had 5 lifetimes. They carry around a fraction of what you do of their life on earth. Now, how does it posture their personality? They are less apt to have the wisdom you do, less apt to believe the things you do. Could I say something? Is it possible that your grand, elegant, multidimensional truth would be wasted on them? They're not ready for it. So they would have a smaller truth that works for them. But their truth will still allow them to connect to God in an elementary way. Beautiful it is. And God loves them the same. Yours, way beyond that. Been there, done that. You are on to things that are so much more advanced. Now, I want to ask you, who's got the truth? Do you see what I'm saying? There is no one truth. But there is one God. And there is one Spirit. And there is one universal love. And when you mix these together, we invite you to find the grandest truth of all, and that will be yours. Not what my partner gives you, not what your neighbor gives you, not what your church gives you, but one that is intuitive, designed for you because of the years you put in, crossing that bridge to God. Now this is a specific multidimensional information point for you. It's critical. If you do not pass this understanding, there is a tendency for you to be stuck looking for the one truth, which, by the way, has gotten humanity into a lot of trouble, if you've noticed. Time to break the paradigm. Is Christianity correct? Absolutely. Is Buddhism correct? Absolutely. Is Hinduism correct? Absolutely. Does Islam have a place in this? Absolutely. The love of God, when refined, for the souls that need it will cling to a certain kind of paradigm, and God will be there, and healing will be there, and youthing will be there for the souls that need it. And it's all correct and true. But KRYON, can you give us some kind of a guidance of perhaps like where we're headed, or what to look for, or it's so crazy and scrambled up. What do I do? What do I look for? I will give you the answer. You look for love. Period. You look for love and compassion in any belief system. You'll find it at the core. Go where it feels comfortable and move forward. And you'll be honored for it. Look for love. The dark cannot be represented for long as accurate or true, because there is no love and there is no compassion, and this earth knows better. Welcome to a new paradigm, common sense, and reality. Some of you got this, some of you have no idea what I said. And all of that is appropriate as well. Every single human has his or her own path of discovery in your own time, in your own way. You are blessed for it. My only request, if I may have one, please don't stop seeking. Please don't despair. Please do not think that it's over simply because of somebody who says something. A request. Because I've been here before, and so have you. And so it is. Greetings, dear ones. I'm KRYON of Magnetic Service. This communication, the channeling of today, will be a little different. The difference is that you need to hear an overview. I'm going to call it the overview of the future, and yet the very term future is elusive. It's not about the future that is immediate, it's about the future of the planet. This is the kind of channel that my partner has trouble with, because the things that are delivered outside of the purview of his three-dimensional brain. He receives these kinds of messages sometimes in duplicate and triplicate. At the same time he's talking to you, he gets other messages so he can enhance it. This is the best we can do to give a multi-dimensional message to a three-dimensional brain. And so he struggles sometimes. And if it takes place, he'll simply back up and give it again. It's the kind of message that you wish to review and listen to again. It's the kind of message that you might put in a time capsule. The kind that is a human time capsule, so that you might open it and understand it more fully when things have changed. It's not going to be a long channel, but it's going to be one filled with information of the kind that we not necessarily have given before. Pieces and parts of it have been alluded to. We want to paint a picture of a bigger picture. My partner talks about the shift, I talk about the shift. My partner is giving lectures on what is next, but his lectures are the pablum to what is next. But he gives it to a humanity that goes step by step and only begins to move into new areas of understanding as they examine the old ones and try to decipher what could be different. And it's slow. But that's where it begins. And if I could, I would preface all of this by telling you that what is going on Earth at this moment, we have seen before. Dear ones, if you could compare the galaxy and all of the planets that have gone through this before as a school, this would be the graduation of the first step. And as we have looked at what has taken place in this galaxy with others before you, we know what's coming. Because the steps that are next for you are the same steps that were taken before. What you describe as human consciousness isn't. It's consciousness. It only belongs to the human because you're human. It's the same kind of thing, energy. The attributes and the confluences of the energies are almost identical to the consciousness that the other planets have gone through. And the reason is because life is similar. Some almost identical from planet to planet to planet, because the galaxy is made up of fractals. From the smallest to the largest, you're going to see repetitive parts of the same thing. It's a beautiful system. And what it means is it gives rise on other planets. One, perhaps right now, that's just getting life, the building blocks of DNA, getting ready to be seeded by you in the future. DNA. Same kind as you have, the same amino acid structures as you have is common to all. So we've seen this before. You're a young civilization, dear one, so young it's hard to even give you a perspective of how young. Your civilization hasn't even been around the galaxy one time yet. Hardly. The almost 200 million years that it takes to go around one time, one rev. There are societies and civilizations that have been around 3 revs. The Pleiadians, half a rev. To tell you how old some life is in this galaxy, way before you. Some of them visit you. None of them are able to influence you to the degree that you can influence yourselves. Galaxy teems with life, and you're well hidden, by the way. We've seen this before. I want to tell you a bigger picture. Your youth and how young you are starts to explain why the earth has been through such a horrendous time. Civilization looks ugly to you. Your past and your history filled with survival and killing, weaponry, mass destruction, no elegance of thought for life, torture. They all went through that. They all did. Because civilization builds itself as your children build themselves as a metaphor through life. There comes a time, and we've said it before, where a child becomes self-aware and the ego takes over and all they think of is themselves and survival. On the playground at school, some of them become bullies just to survive. Some of them never get over it. And they're bullies as adults because they never moved into the elegance of the wisdom that you have. As you grow up, there becomes a knowledge and a wisdom that occurs to you that there's a better way to solve problems through listening and cooperation. You have to survive. But the children don't know that. And they will flail, and generation after generation, you bring up children and they'll do the same thing, and they'll go through the terrible 2s and the thrashing 3s and the teenage years, and it's over, and hopefully they'll grow up. And if I could be so simplistic to apply this to human civilization, let me do it. You're still on the playground. You're still pushing each other around. You're still getting reactions. You're still in survival. Until about 20 years ago, 30 years ago, even 50, where it started to shift just a little. We have told you over and over, I'm not going to visit it again, what the timetable was, what the calendar said, why I'm here. No, I want to go further than that in this particular channel. I want to talk to you about energy not seen. We're going to talk about this in 2 places in this channel, and this is the first. Energy not seen. There is a complement of energy in the galaxy that interests you and you can't see it. But you want to. Because it touches you in ways that are fascinating. This unseen energy is responsible for what the New Agers sense first. You're able to pick up energy in someone's aura somehow, some way. A medical intuitive can actually feel what is wrong. The aura broadcasts sickness, health, joy. What is that? Wouldn't you like to bottle it and take it home and analyze it, and you can't? The very institute that puts this event on so interested in these energies, unseen energies that make a difference. What is it a reader reads, or a psychic feels, or a futurist can futurize? Where does it come from? Why is it so elusive? And I'm going to tell you in just a moment a little bit more about this. For it's the key to the future. A child would not know about the elegance of wisdom, how to put things together instead of tearing them apart. A child who is ego-driven, who is only waking up to being self-aware, is only going to do what the child does. The only equipment the child has in its very elementary way is going to lash out in certain ways and do certain things. And if you gave them a plate of wisdom, they'd look at it and they'd have no idea what it was and throw it away. This is all about to change. Because this unseen energy has attributes you don't know anything about, and you're discovering. First of all, everything about this unseen energy, which we call the quantum consciousness of humanity, is starting to enhance itself so that it'll be a little more obvious. If I took you to another civilization, like the Pleiadian, like the Orion, the Arcturian, if I took you to any of those, you would not recognize anything. First of all, they don't have technology. How about that? Because physical things that do things, they threw away long ago when they realized that the physics of human consciousness could do everything they ever wanted. That's where it's going. And you still wonder what it is. Truly, what is this? How does it work? Is it quantitative? If you have more of it, does it do more things? And the answer is no. Now, we have given you some hints about it. Human consciousness has no succinct definition I could give you that would make any sense at all. Because we have told you that less than 1%, 0.5% of humanity has to awaken in a certain way to affect the entire planet. Now that ought to tell you it's not quantitative. It's not 3D, is it? Less than 0.5%. If you really want to know the numbers, if you need the numbers, that ought to tell you something. It's not about how many of you there are, dear ones. It really isn't. Because there is something hiding here. There is a system, a confluence of systems that you don't know anything about. So let's talk about them. Now, this is not going to be understandable to all of you. That is why you're going to listen to this again if you choose, and others will put it in a time capsule if they choose, and these things may very well pop up later, and you'll go, oh. How do you explain the internet to somebody who's never seen a computer? Where do you begin? How do you explain the elegance of a race car to somebody who hasn't invented a wheel yet? And this is the issue. How do I tell you about what you have no concept of and you're not ready to know because you got to walk through the steps? So let me give you some building blocks and some metaphors. There's something called a wisdom barrier. The wisdom barrier is what we have described as what happens in human consciousness when certain attributes occur that are not quantitative. That is to say, it's not about how many. It's about other things that will occur within the physics of consciousness that you don't know yet anything about this system, that must occur in a certain way. In a distributed way, not a centralized way, in order to break this barrier called the wisdom barrier. And when it is broken, what it tells us is that humanity has passed a point where it is in survival mode and goes to a mode that starts to build the wisdom of getting along. The wisdom that enhances the brains of all humanity to a point where they can agree on something that they never even knew before without actually having it taught. Did you hear that? Now, you didn't expect that. It surrounds the human being in such a way, and the civilization in such a way, that when you're born, it becomes second nature. The wisdom of getting along. It's called the wisdom barrier. And let me tell you what's happening. You're there. And it's not going to give you fireworks or sparks in the sky. There's not going to be a celebration, and there's not going to be balloons. Except on my side of the veil. And there's all of those. Because you're there. You're looking into the very essence of it. You are peeking into what makes it work. You're about to push the envelope that will affect all humanity. Not just the light workers, not just the old souls. You're about to push a button on physics you didn't know existed. Now this is a biggie. The missing piece. How do I explain this? My partner, go very slow. Humanity explains things only from what they know, not what they don't know. Here's an example. You look into space, science looks into space, and they find attributes they cannot explain that do not seem to be Newtonian. But Newtonian physics is the gold standard of motion everywhere. And so the human being struggles to find formulas that will put the unexplained into Newtonian boxes. Welcome to dark matter. You're going to laugh later. And we have told you this before, but this is the human propensity. Take what is known, observe what is unknown but there, and place it into the boxes of the known. Even if they're convoluted, even if they don't make sense, even if they're mysterious. Instead of looking and saying, maybe, just maybe, there are missing laws of physics we don't know about that would explain this and that and this and that. Well, let me tell you one of the biggest places that you're missing. The place of the physics of consciousness. Listen to me. How do you define consciousness? Well, it's developed through a very special thought of humans and this and that. No, it isn't. Consciousness is physics, and you should get used to this. You are developing it through human thought, unaware that there are rules of consciousness, and it is a part of quantum physics. There are rules, there are postulates, there are beautiful attributes of the physics of consciousness that are going to start to explain what's going to happen in the future, but you don't see it that way. The missing piece is the knowledge that you can track this, that you can plot it, you can create it, even outside of humanity. Did you know that? It's beautiful, because when I start to tell you some of the attributes of the physics of consciousness, you're going to go, oh. What are the attributes of physics? What do you know? The answer is actually very little, but what you do know, you experiment with, you create things. The very technology that you have that is so beautiful on this planet is brought to you by the knowledge of the physics that you know. And there's cause and reaction. You build this and this happens. You put together certain kinds of things, and through all of the principles and the rules that you understand and the 4 basic laws that you have out of 6, you know what they are and you're using them. Beautiful. Now, what if I told you that that same scenario exists in consciousness? There are laws of consciousness that are just like the laws of physics in that there's causal, there's effect. But in a quantum world, they're not linear. And so they create certain kinds of things. The physics of consciousness, being quantum and not linear, creates attributes that are going to create the future of this planet. And now, my partner, it gets hard. Because I'm showing my partner things right now, and he can't verbalize this. So I'm going to say, do your best. He sees the emotion of it. And he goes, oh, if you knew the physics of consciousness, you can build a better world. Mm. It has attributes. First of all, it does not travel from place to place. It does not travel in a straight direction. It does not travel. Consciousness is not in one place going to another. Consciousness does not expand. It does not get bigger or smaller. Consciousness is. Consciousness of physics, just like attributes of physics, sit there ready to be enhanced or not based upon other laws around it. And when they're applied, then they all change. Consciousness. Let me tell you about a couple of them. One is called the benevolence factor. Did you know that as the physics of consciousness is explored and the wisdom factor is applied and the barrier is passed, what happens next is an exponential understanding and application of the rules of consciousness that create a factor which generates benevolent action. Oh, that's convoluted, my partner. Can you say that better? Let me tell you this way. Right now on this planet, there's a struggle between forces. Because of the consciousness that you have developed here, and the rules that you have put in place through the physics of consciousness, there's an allowance right now of many things on this planet that we've never talked about. Is there evil on the planet? Yep. Are there entities dedicated to come in and mess with you? Yes. Is that shocking? And why is that? And why would that be? Because this test allows it. Because what you have created in the physics of consciousness and the rules that have applied and how you're using it allow it. But the next step past the wisdom barrier enhances those very patterns of consciousness that you're going to discover as part of physics that close the door. Did you get that? When the rules of physics are applied in certain situations, you can control what happens. It's the same in consciousness. When you reach a point of understanding the physics of consciousness, how it works, the mechanics of it, the distribution of it. Listen, I'm giving my partner something and he's going to say it and it's not going to make sense to anything. The spiral delivery of it. Now that's going to make sense to somebody. You shut the door. And the things that have visited this planet can't anymore. And those places of darkness that would want to come in and play with your consciousness because it's at the teenage level of physics, can't get in. That's the best explanation we have for what is going to happen in the future. And the Pleiadians are jumping up and down because they know what happened. It's almost an exponential evolution if you want it to be. One thing leads to another. It builds on itself. You don't have to start all over every single time you're born, like my partner described today. You come in with the factors that you learned before and build upon them. If I could use a term, born wise, I would. And it's going to change everything. And then when the physics is revealed, you'll understand why there are machines that can work with consciousness. But you're not going to need them. Not long. How many generations are required, KRYON? I'm not going to tell you. I'm not going to tell you. The reason is I don't want to give you a setup that'll spoil the party. Because every single planet has had its own time cycle of the delivery of this through their own free choice. How does it work? How fast does it work? When will it start? It's already started. You are at the wisdom barrier. Once you are at the wisdom barrier, I would like to tell you that the track record of all the planets who have reached the wisdom barrier are the same. They all move forward. Every single one. You threw a switch. And no amount of dark energy can stop it. Oh, it'll try. I told you that before. Humans invested in old ways. Like the kids on the playground who don't want to grow up. They'll flail. They'll bully until their last breath. But they will awaken in a world, and they haven't got a chance to do it again. And this is what we're talking about. The benevolent factor, the wisdom barrier, these things start to work in the laws of the consciousness of physics in ways that you will indeed figure out, creating increased DNA percentage activation, creating a generation after generation, eventually, I won't tell you how long, of a human being who can create things out of nothing, who have control over physics, which is a lower kind of physics. The highest kind of physics is consciousness. And consciousness physics can control 3D physics any day. I'll wrap this up by telling you all of you are going to be there to see it. All of you. Every single one. Because that is the plan, old soul. You come back and you enter a world that you always wished you could have. Peace on earth? Oh, that's easy. That's the beginning. That's planting the seeds. That's a given. Look at your news. It's not going to look like it, is it? That's just today. Peace on earth. That's not the goal. Hardly. That's just a given. When you grow up and you're an adult, you stop throwing stones at each other on the playground. You stop. You have a more elegant idea. That's peace on earth. That's the beginning. The very beginning. And then it gets good. This is what we see. I've never said these things in this way. I wanted you to hear the full story. What would happen to a civilization that could create anything it wanted physically, was never hungry, who could live as long as they wanted to, could put themselves in a quantum state if they wanted to, who had different sets of ideas of the way things should work, who had no central control? Did you hear that? Have you ever heard of a managerless corporation? It's like that. And you would say, oh, that can't work. Oh, yes, it can. That's what you're headed for. Government decentralized to where there is none. There will be no such thing as world government, dear ones. Instead, there will be world consciousness agreement. You'll know better. How about that? What happens to a group of adults who go to a party for the first time and they've never met each other? What do? Throw rocks at each other? No, there's a consciousness of the party. They get together. They talk to each other. They have fun. What about a planet that had just that? They're born into a situation where they know better. That's the wisdom factor. That's the barrier you're crossing. It allows you to throw away any other system you ever thought you needed, especially the ones that organize you into groups to do things. It will be second nature. You'll all know together. Too good to be true? Ask a Pleiadian. Ask those from Orion. Ask those from Arcturus. Ask any planet of free choice, because they're all looking at you right now. This room is filled with them. And they're nodding their heads and say, right on, right on, right on. You just wait. You'll be there. And so it is.